hated this book, but I had to keep reading it. Let's get started and talk about it. Let me know if you guys have ever had that. First of all, I don't know if I would say hate, but I didn't really like this book a whole lot, but I wanted to see what happened at the end, so that's why I kept reading it. And it was such a bizarre concept that I'm like, I have to read this book. You're wondering, okay, get on with it. Get on with it, Dawn. What was the book? Okay, the book is called, and I know there's certain words you can't say on YouTube, so it is by someone named Tasha, and her last name is Caryell, and the book was called Love Letters to a Serial Unaliver, but you know the word, right? And so basically it is about a woman who is in her 30s. Her name is Hannah, and she is kind of living a dull life. She's in her 30s, and she does live in an apartment, but it's not really that nice. She doesn't have a lot of money. She has a really boring job that she's been at for 10 years. She's never moved up or gotten a promotion. Like I said, kind of low middle income. And, you know, she can live and pay her bills, but doesn't have a lot left over. So she doesn't really have nice things or nice clothes, you know, that kind of thing, right? Well, she did, you know, go to high school, things like that. And her friends from high school, they're all, now I'm assuming from this book she's in her early 30s. A lot of them have all gotten married and starting to have children and are living a wonderful life, or they're getting engaged, or they have good jobs. And so she just has kind of a boring, dreary life, okay? And so, and maybe she doesn't take as good care of herself. She thinks she's not the most attractive, that kind of thing. Dresses kind of frumpy, you get the idea. Well, anyway, so she starts getting involved, and so she's bored at her job. She starts obsessing and getting involved in true crime type stuff. And so she's obsessing over it, and she goes to like some true crime type conventions or clubs, things like that. I don't know if you would call it a convention, but gets involved with other people who have that same interest. I mean, there's some people that are really involved in that like trying to solve crimes and things like that, but they take it to a different way. There's a gentleman named William, and he's an attorney. He comes from a really good family. He also has an older brother, and he, you know, is accused and arrested of unaliving 3 women. And so they think that he's a serial unaliver. He says he's innocent, and so this woman, Hannah, starts writing him letters in prison, and they start falling in love, or whichever you would call it. But she's obsessed with him, okay? So he's in jail. He's not in prison yet because the trial hasn't happened. So she decides to go to, so what ends up happening is she loses her job because she's so obsessed with following, you know, this guy and writing letters and all this kind of stuff, and obsessed with him, that she ends up losing her job. And they're like, hey, your performance is not good. I think they even gave her a warning, so she loses her job. So she decides to take the opportunity. I think she even gives up her apartment and everything. She gave up all of her stuff in her house because she said it wasn't nice, and decides to, out of all the money she does have, she decides to tell her family that she's taking a trip. She didn't even tell them that she lost her job, and goes to Atlanta, Georgia, so she can follow the trial of this guy, okay? And it's kind of the story of that and these other women that are supposedly crazy about this guy too. I won't tell you any more, but she's in Atlanta for a while, but she's not a character that is likable at all. That's the reason I didn't like it. You know I've mentioned this before. There are some books that I read that it's crazy. The characters have no redeeming qualities, and you can't stand them. So it's hard to root for somebody that you really don't like and you don't see anything good about them. But then there's other books, which I'm gonna tell you about in the next video I do, that for some reason they're kind of an unsavory character, but for some reason you either find them funny or you like them somehow. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, that's what the story's about. And then you'll find out whether, because I said alleged, is William guilty? Is he innocent? But this Hannah character is very interesting and really weird, and so are some of the other people. And I find it really odd. I want to say this, kind of off the story. Let me know if you've read this book or if it would interest you. I find it so bizarre when men are in prison and they've been accused or, of unaliving somebody or doing a horrific crime, and women are writing them love letters. I don't understand that. Maybe you guys could explain it. There's got to be some kind of disconnect there. I don't know. So, let me know if you guys would read that book, and come back tomorrow to find out probably one of my favorite books of the year so far. That's all I have to say. Love you, appreciate you, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.